I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is real estate consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Hey, thanks for having me back, Jim.
What are you seeing on the housing front across Canada today?
What we're seeing is that the pattern the market's been in for the last few months has continued. And you're going to, I know you're not hearing this in the news anywhere, but actually the national market at the national level has been cooling now for 8 months. So it's come off peak now for 8 months. Obviously that is a great accountability to what's happened out in British Columbia, but that's the truth. The only thing that's really been holding the market up until now has been Ontario. And as a matter of fact, Ontario's share of the market of sales went from 40% last year at this time up to 55% this time. So if Ontario sneezes at all, this house of cards we've been living in will officially come down. And my forecasting from last August, if that in fact is true, I'm going to look like some Svengali in terms of what I had forecasted, because that is exactly what I was a possible outcome, and the only one I spoke about all the way back then. So the market in terms of a national market, which is the one that the government was addressing in the budget, has been cooling now for 8 months, and you're probably going to start to hear about that sometime this month or next, as the reality of the local sales numbers start to hit home.
Well, Ross, you were bang on when you predicted the Vancouver market would peak last January, and by August it would roll over. Your numbers were bang on. But of course, I'm sure the national media didn't pick up on it because it hadn't happened in Toronto.
Yeah, the national media didn't pick up on it, and you also have to remember there's so many voices out there for so many decades that have controlled this conversation on housing. I am the only, my firm, the Wealthy Homeowner Program, this is the only alternative fact that is out there, and it just happens to be the only fact that's really true, which is why, thank you for mentioning my previous call there for Vancouver, but I also made one for Calgary 2 years before that even, and that rolled out again exactly as I had mentioned. It's not like this is, I'm an idiot savant or something. It's just that all housing markets function in the exact same way, and as long as you know how they function, you know when the market's going to turn months and months ahead of everyone else. And it's not a complicated process. You just have to know all the different metrics to follow. And if you follow them, you know what's going to happen ahead of time. So this national market, you could do a Google search today, and you're not going to find anywhere where they're going to tell you the market has been contracting now for months. And that was predicated on a turn that happened even months before that. You're not going to read that was reported anywhere, but I'll stand by my word here once again that this is an unavoidable consequence of all housing markets. There simply is not enough capital available to keep inserting into a market to keep a market going forward, and there has to be some kind of a correction take place to allow the market to roll over and start all over again.
Is there anything happening this spring in BC's market that really stands out?
Well, what really stands out in British Columbia right now are, again, the false pundits out there talking about the market. I read an article the other day, once again, Tom Davidoff was quoted in the Globe and Mail mentioning about the new first-time buyer program having an impact in British Columbia, and his assertion that had something to do with more demand in the condominium or the lower priced unit market. And his comments are just another example of the ignorance that exists in the academic space on housing markets. As I mentioned on the show before, all this program was going to do was simply give those who were already going to buy 5% of their mortgage amount as a 5-year interest-free loan. It wasn't going to encourage more people to go out and buy. It wasn't going to create a higher demand. It was simply something that was going to be capitalized on by those already that were going to buy anyways, regardless of whether or not that policy came out. So your British Columbia market, what you're seeing is that the shifting of the sales is towards a higher quality product for the same home buying dollar. This would be really evident in places like Fraser Valley, where Fraser Valley is now losing buyers to the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board listings. So people are still spending the exact same amount of money that they would have spent last year, but they are now acquiring a higher quality house for the same price that they're buying. This is just the opposite of what's happening here in Toronto or the GTA, where people are still spending the exact same amount of money, but they are now acquiring a lesser quality home than what they would have purchased previously. So this is how housing markets work. It's why the public has been deceived for so many decades by the use of the average selling price and the total ignorance that exists on the quality component of a home sale. So what you're seeing now in British Columbia is home buyers are actually able to acquire a higher quality home for the same price that they were paying. So not only are prices down the $130,000 off what they were down last year, you're also getting a higher quality home on top of that. So this is where you see these, when I've talked in your show before about greater house price declines than what the real estate boards report. I'm looking at the exact same house, and I'm seeing how the market is impacting it. So when I'm saying there's a 26-29% decrease, it simply means that some of the homes that are being purchased today would have cost 26 to 29% more had you purchased them last year at this time.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after the break.
Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the 4th largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
Aben Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Aben's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at abenresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Recently in the news, we're made aware of a BC court ruling about a home buyer being held liable for not holding back taxes from the price they paid for a home. Can you explain it?
Yeah, Jim. So I read that article too. I think it was in the Vancouver Sun was where I read it. So it was nice to see a reporter getting out there and doing a little bit of legal work in terms of following the case law that's being established out in British Columbia. Now, when I say established, what I mean is being reinforced. These laws that this article was addressing and the court ruling that was handed down by the BC Supreme Court, these laws have been on the books for decades. And anyone who was selling real estate really should have been following a due diligence strategy for their clients to be sure that the client didn't become responsible. What I mean by that is this. When it comes to taxation and real estate, the buyer often carries the burden of remitting those taxes to Revenue Canada. And that requirement forces those involved in the transaction, if they're going to complete their due diligence, to always be sure what any taxes that are payable are withheld on the day of closing. This is commonly seen when GST was brought in and the principal residence exception happened with goods and services taxes, where the only thing that was taxed was the commission. So it was just the real estate commission itself that was actually taxed. The sale price of the home was never taxed. That was unless the property was used for another purpose where capital gains would be applicable to that sale, where the owner of that property was going to have to report capital gains in his tax. Normally you would see this in a commercial building. So commercial deals were not exempted from the GST. And actually, in a commercial transaction, the GST is applicable to the full purchase price of the building. Now, there are offsets available, GST offsets that are available, but that's not, regardless, you still had to pay your GST was payable. That was always remitted by the buyer. Because if a buyer went ahead and purchased a commercial property and he did not know that there was going to be a GST applicable to it, he would pay the going price for the property, but then he would also find out he had to pay the GST that was still outstanding. So this was what has gone on for decades, and it's really been in any property where there's capital gains of some sort that is going to be applicable or potentially applicable, and in those cases, the buyer is the one who's on the hook. What it appears to have happened is that apparently, once again, maybe my family was the only family in Canada who was aware of that when we were selling real estate. Because we always informed our buyers that you have to be sure of any property that we're selling you, you're not going to have to pay any outstanding tax that the owner could be held responsible for, like the owner was responsible for. In other words, any remittance you would have to hold back on the day of closing. So obviously, none of our clients, over thousands of clients we dealt with, ever got caught because we always did our due diligence following this common taxation fact. Apparently, that has not been going on anywhere in Canada except for when my family was selling real estate. As crazy as this sounds, I know there are other realtors out there who were doing it because some of them worked in my own office and they got educated from us. But that said, in BC, it appears that any property that was even flipped, this is what people don't understand. When a property is flipped, Revenue Canada sees that as a business. And as a business, that means the flip is susceptible to capital gains. What that means is any home buyer purchasing a property that was flipped and is going to use that house as their principal residence, they were required to hold back any taxation that would be payable by the owner of the property on closing. Generally, lawyers would check into this, and I believe probably real estate agents have, instead of doing their own due diligence, relied on the lawyer's competency to catch this prior to closing. But in this case, that didn't happen, and apparently you are probably thousands and thousands of home buyers in British Columbia right now, probably tens of thousands of home buyers in British Columbia right now, who are now at risk of having Revenue Canada come back at them to get those taxes remitted. What the process is this. Revenue Canada will go after the buyer of the property and say, the owner of the property, and say, where are the taxes you were supposed to remit? The owner will say, oh, we sold the property and that wasn't included in the purchase price. Revenue Canada will say, oh, okay, we'll go back and talk to the buyer. They talk to the buyer, they'll find out the clause wasn't inserted into the offer, the lawyer didn't do the appropriate due diligence, the real estate agent didn't do the appropriate due diligence, anyone involved in assisting the buyer didn't do the required due diligence to let that tax become known. And then Revenue Canada says, sorry, we're going after you. So you give us the money, and then you go ahead and sue the owner of the home for not telling you that they had to pay capital gains. Revenue Canada always goes to the easiest source. And in this case, it's the buyer of the home who is now the current owner. So Revenue Canada can put a lien on that property to take care of any outstanding tax. There is no excuse for this to happen. These laws have been on the book now for decades. Anyone doing their due diligence should have caught that and protected the buyer of a home. Also, any buyer that's out there who is considering purchasing a home right now, even though I'm telling you wait because the housing market is correcting, if you're going to go ahead and still buy, you need to be sure that someone that is assisting you does their due diligence so you don't become held liable for their tax. Part of the wealthy homeowners home buying strategy, actually, that is one of the parts of the strategy, and we actually suggest that anyone includes a clause in their offer to make sure that they're protected, because that clause ensures that they're never going to be held accountable by the CRA to pay someone else's tax.
If you end up in a situation like that, could you sue the real estate agent?
You should be suing the real estate agent. But this is the best part, and this is something consumers don't know. The strategy in these cases is that you file a complaint with the Real Estate Council of British Columbia against the brokerage, the broker owner, and against the real estate sales rep that you are working with. Then you also file small claims charges if it's below $25,000 against the brokerage, the broker owner, and the sales rep again. If it's above that amount, then you speak with a lawyer, and you have those three parties included in the lawsuit to be held accountable to give you your money back. The real estate companies all carry errors and omissions insurance. So the errors and omissions insurance should cover that shortfall if the realtor made an omission and through not putting that clause in the offer. Now, if the realtor or the sales agent or the brokerage or the broker owner did that negligently, then the insurance company will probably say the errors and omissions insurance isn't in force, and the money is going to have to be paid directly from the broker. The fact of the matter is this: the home buyer who was never informed that they were now going to be accountable for taxation has an out. Simply follow the strategy and you don't have anything to worry about. If anyone our listeners are in that situation right now, free of charge, they can email me through rosk.com and I will provide that information at no charge. No membership in the Wealthy Homeowner even needed.
We'll have more with Ross K. right after this.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're chatting with Ross K. Ross, apparently 270 first-time buyers have purchased homes in order to take advantage of BC's new provincial program, giving them access to interest-free down payments. Do you think this has impacted BC sales in the first 3 months of this year?
Yeah, no. We spoke a little earlier about this, and let me clarify now. 270 over thousands of sales that have taken place will have zero impact in the market, especially when it's generally in this case, all first-time buyers who will be buying the lowest priced homes in the neighborhood. It is just these people are not going to take advantage of it. They're actually capitalizing on it. In other words, these are people who are already going to buy a house, no matter whether or not this program was offered. What the government simply has done is given them a cash windfall for no reason at all, by having 5 years of interest-free on 5% of the mortgage outstanding. The government would have been far, far, far smarter to have given the interest rate savings to families that are in need in the British province of British Columbia. Instead of wasting that money by giving someone an advantage who is already going to buy a house, it has no bearing on whether or not their choice was to buy. They could have given over those millions of dollars to people in need. They could have built more affordable housing. They could have did something maybe in Vancouver with the problem that you've got with drugs out there right now. This was a social decision to give money to a sector of the population who didn't need it. These people were going to become homeowners anyways. They are already financially able to own a home. This in no way, and I stress this 100%, no one at all who could not afford to purchase a home is now able to purchase one with this program. It is another myth through the sheer ignorance that exists on the home ownership process.
Well, the government ad promoting this program says directly, helping people build a nest egg. Since when is that the responsibility of government?
It's never the responsibility of government. How about this program is going to put a roof over a family's home? How about this program is going to repair unhealthy subsidized housing units in our city? How about this program is going to give a rent subsidy to British Columbians to allow them to enjoy a higher quality of rental accommodation? Why? It's just the sheer ignorance. I keep using that word, and I'm sorry, Jim, but it's the ignorance on the homeownership process that is so overwhelming that allows politicians to make these simply ludicrous policies. The same as your foreign buyer tax. Bringing in a foreign buyer's tax at the peak of a market when the market was already correcting and foreign buyers were already vacating. It just made no sense. You wait till the market stabilizes and then you bring in taxation changes. You don't do it in midstream where you have greater unintended consequences because the policy impacted areas that you really weren't planning on it impacting. And that's the case with this policy. They're not selling any extra homes to people who couldn't afford to buy them. They're just giving a bonus, a cash bonus, to people who are already going to buy a house anyway.
What steps should a home buyer be taking right now if they're considering buying a home this year?
Well, if they're considering buying a home this year, they need to be tracking the market that they're looking at, and they need to know, is the market currently losing price intensity, or is it gaining price intensity? So if you're in British Columbia right now, housing prices are falling. So why would you be foolish enough to listen to someone in the marketplace telling you that housing prices are going to go up? I heard articles about bidding wars on condos in Vancouver because they were in the $700,000-800,000 range. Are you kidding me, people? Those buyers for those properties are bidding on them because they're the highest quality you can get for your home buying dollar. It's got nothing to do with supply and demand. If it had anything to do with supply and demand, the fact that your market is almost cut in half in terms of demand, it would be reflected in lower selling prices in those categories. You're not seeing that. What you're seeing is people acquiring a higher quality home for the same price. In Toronto, now this is the problem you have in Toronto, which is the exact same problem home buyers had in British Columbia last year at this time. You're afraid that you're going to miss out. You're afraid that the market will never correct. You're afraid that that $700,000 house is going to be worth $1.5 million in 10 years, and you'll never be able to afford it. You can take my word on this. That is impossible. It has never happened anywhere in the world. It's not going to happen in Canada. People can only afford to carry so large of a mortgage. What you're looking at this time is, imagine this. The truth of the matter is, in Ontario, so I'm going to flip back to Ontario here for an example, because this market is still what they're calling hot. The cost to purchase a first-time home in 1990 and the cost to purchase a first-time home in 2017 is exactly the same. It is no cheaper to do it today. What you have got today instead is higher prices at a lower mortgage rate. When you look at the total cost of ownership on the day you move into a property, in other words, my interest rate, my mortgage payment carried forward for 25 years is going to be what total. That's what your cost of ownership is in terms of interest and mortgage only, or equity, the amount of down payment you put down, and the amount that you're going to pay for the next 25 years till you own the home free and clear. That number from 1990 till 2017 in Ontario is exactly the same. There is no fluctuation. Instead of had you simply, well, in 1990, you would have purchased a home with $10,000 down, where in 2017, you would have needed $30,000 down. If you had purchased that same house, and with the $20,000 savings, in other words, it costs you more $20,000 to add a few $30,000 down payment in 2017. If you had applied that to either the mortgage or better, invested that $20,000 back in 1990, purchasing that same house, the cost was exactly the same. There is no difference. Yes, there'll be property tax difference. Yes, the quality of homes is increasing. Yes, your expenses to maintain, renew, and renovate the property will be more today, but they're always going to be more as you continue to own your property, and if house prices continue to go up or they go down, and then 15 years later they go back up again. This is simple real estate math, and that's what every home buyer needs to understand. You will not miss out if you know how the math works. The math is black and white. It's as clear as 1 + 1 = 2. No, the world is not flat. You will not fall off if you keep going out into the horizon in your boat. You will just simply go around in a circle. The housing market is exactly the same. Don't fear missing out. Just make sure you're aware of how long you're going to be a homeowner, and then what the costs and consequences are over that entire period of time that you're talking about.
Ross, Tony Robbins in Toronto recently sponsored a conference on how you can get rich on real estate using other people's money. I think the only person who got rich here was Tony Robbins. He charged $150 to get in, and about 20,000 people went. My little calculator says he made $3 million.
And guess what?
Suckered in?
You know what that's an example of, Jim?
Well, you
real
tell
estate
me.
Math. You just used real estate math because what you said is the truth. Tony Robbins, you remember back to the old days when Tony Robbins was a big deal and all the Hollywood stars and everybody went around him. I certainly read his books. I'll be honest with you. I think I personally benefited from reading them at the time. I was a young guy in my early 30s, and as you know, as a guy, you need some help in your late 20s and early 30s to try to get your head straight. And he was a real asset back then. But now he's stepped into the greed mode. He is no longer winning with the personal improvement, the self-help strategies. He now is seeking to make money like Tony Wu did in the 1990s. Tony Wu was that famous fellow that appeared on TV commercials in his big yacht with 4 or 5 models hanging around him, and him claiming that he got all this from real estate. Real estate investing as an investment, following a black and white strategy, currently not talked about in any of these real estate clubs, any of these real estate networks, any of these places that are charging outrageous fees for to be involved with. But real estate investment strategies, ones where you purchase the real estate and you never ever sell it. When you die, it's left to the rest of your family as their inheritance. You purchase that as an income revenue stream when you retire. That's what your goal is when you're buying it. Those strategies can be enacted fair and square, but those strategies would also be approved by your lawyer, your accountant, and by your financial advisor, not by a real estate huckster, a real estate shill, some wannabe self-help expert who now wants to make $3 million selling tickets to a seminar. This is done by people who are there to protect your interests. So any of the advice that you're being given has multiple levels of vetting by other professionals who legally have an obligation to protect you. So why would you do it anywhere else? Why would anyone invest in real estate today believing what I said, or anybody said for that matter? What I'm saying is, yeah, we've got a strategy that you follow, but don't believe me. Talk to your lawyer, talk to your accountant, talk to your financial advisor, and if it meets with all of those people say, hey, yeah, what this strategy is saying really is the truth, then you can consider doing it. If they tell you it's no good, my advice is don't do it. Why would you pay money to go listen to the Pitbull, Tony Robbins, Property Brothers, flip-to-flip experts, when all these guys are hucksters and shills? Has anybody even watched the Property Brothers television show? Have you watched how one brother sells a couple of properties that upon the other brother beginning to renovate it, all of a sudden it has mold? Or all of a sudden it has carpenter ants or termites? Or all of a sudden it had a flaw in the construction of the building? My advice would have been, A, I would never use that property brother as my real estate agent because clearly can't even put a clause in the offer to protect you from finding mold. But I would have said, hire Mike Holmes. Make it right. The guy everybody hates because his building inspections are so tough. Call Mike up. Let Mike inspect that investment property you're going to buy. I have no relationship, never met the guy. All I know is when I watch his show, whether people like it or not, he always protects his client first. Yes, does he overbuild? Sure. But that's what the real truth about these real estate shows was. Tony Robbins has now become the Tommy Wu from 1990 in 2017. Pitbulls beside him, all the other shills and hucksters are out there taking millions of dollars from innocent people who are really, truly trying to find a way to make money in something other than the stock market. Look, real estate is an asset class unto its own. It is an asset in the same way that a stock portfolio is an asset. You need professional advice with multiple layers of oversight and protection for you. Don't listen to someone at a seminar that you paid a couple $100s to, or a club where you pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month for advice, who's going to tell you to pick stock A, stock B, because it's going to go up 300% in the next 20 years. Get a professional who will say, don't worry about these guesses. We'll just go for the 25-year plan where you don't have to worry about guessing. You can sleep every night because you don't have to worry. Real estate's the exact same way. If you want to buy a house or purchase a real estate investment using the advice of Tony Robbins or Pitbull, or the Property Brothers for that matter, go ahead. You're going to deal with the consequences. These people have not been around long enough to go through a full housing market cycle. They do not know what it's like to have owned real estate in Canada between 1990 and 2003. They know from 2003 forward. The reality of 1990 to 2003, it shows you how real estate should be bought and sold as an investment of the real estate asset class. These newbies, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Ross, thank you so much for your help.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jim.
My guest has been real estate consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. His website is thewealthyhomeowner.ca. You're listening to HoweStreet.com radio. If you have any questions, you can send them to info@HoweStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HoweStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HoweStreet.com radio is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated.